Next step in AWS Landing Zone project is configuring SCP, service control policies, or applying service control policies. I have planned to apply few policies to different OUs. There, there are 10 plus policies I have planned to apply for different purposes. Let me first go through and understand what each policy does. First one, deny root access. I am denying root access to everyone. That root access, that means no one can use root access for any operations, be it a day-to-day operations or privileged operations. It is denied. Why it is needed? Because AWS root user has unrestricted access and cannot also be limited by IAM policies. If root credentials are compromised, an attacker can delete the resources, disable security controls, modify billing settings, delete backups, and can create new administrator. So the SCP I'm going to create will prevent use of root account for API operations across the accounts. So what benefits we get out of it? Eliminates reliance on root credentials for daily administration. People, we are pushing people to use their own admin accounts, not a root administrator. Reduces impact of root credential compromise. So since we are controlling this attack vector, root user attack vector, we are reducing one. We are reducing one. We are reducing the root credential compromise and support security frameworks such as CIS, AWS Foundations benchmark. So because of all about the challenges, reasons that we discussed, obviously security frameworks and security standards have advices on blocking the root AWS root access. So we will comply to the security frameworks like CIS or CIS AWS Foundation benchmark. This is a CIS benchmark. So we will comply to that benchmark. So now let's see what risk we are we can have one example risk we can have without this SCP. If we don't configure this SCP, what one example of the risk, one example risk, let us see. An administrator accidentally shares root credentials or credentials are leaked. The attacker gains control of the account and can remove security exfiltration, security controls or exfiltrate data. So if we are, as I already mentioned, if the attacker gains access to this the root account, he can take complete control and exfiltrate data. We are blocking that attack vector with the first SCP policy. Then the next one, deny disable CloudTrail. Why this is needed? AWS CloudTrail records API activity and is essential for security investigations, incident response, compliance auditing, and change tracking. So what will happen? Attackers often try to logging disable this logging first so they can hide their actions. Now with this SCP, no one can stop CloudTrail logging. And what benefits are we getting? Ensures continuous audit logging, prevents forensic evidences, sorry, preserves forensic evidences, detects unauthorized activity, meets compliance requirements. Again, there are compliance requirements which which would advise to not to set up this policy to not deny disabling CloudTrail. Then the third one, deny public S3. Okay, why this is needed? One of the most common AWS security incidents is accidental exposure of S3 data. AWS provides S3 block public access setting to prevent a public bucket policies, public ACLs, unintended internet access. This SCP prevents user from disabling public access protections. And what are the benefits? Prevents accidental data exposure, prevents PIN sensitive information, protects PIN sensitive information, reduces data breach risk, and enforces organization-wide security. All are self-explanatory. Then allow approved regions. Why this is needed? Organizations often want workloads only in specific regions due to data residency requirement, regulatory compliance, cost management, and operational governance. Again, self-explanatory. Though so, this SCP denies actions outside approved AWS regions. There will be few approved AWS regions that we need to define, and when we configure this policy, we say that only these are the approved regions one should be creating the resources from. If a user or if the admin tries to create a resource from an approved region, AWS will disallow. This policy will disallow creating the resources from other regions. And example risk without this SCP, a developer accidentally creates resource in unapproved region. So data stored in unauthorized geography. It can become a data residency non-compliance. And again, so GDPR banking regulations have some compliances. We would be violating those compliances. Additional unmanaged infrastructure. You would have a infrastructure which is unmanaged, or management becomes difficult. First set of These are first set of policies. Let's see what overall security value we are getting from the four. We already discussed, it's just a kind of a review. First one, prevent use of highly privileged root accounts. Second one, ensure audit logging cannot be turned off. Third one, prevent accidental public exposure of data. And the last one, enforce geographic and compliance boundaries. And apart from these basic policies, I have planned few more. Let us see what are those. And next one is root SCP, deny leaving organization. This is applied on the root. It is applied on the root. Why this is needed? AWS organizations provide centralized governance and accounts through SCPs, centralized billing, security controls, compliance controls, and logging and monitoring. If an account leaves the organization, it immediately stops inheriting those organization guardrails. That means if an organization leaves, then whatever the protection it was under, that protection will no longer be applied. There will be a immediate risk. So that is the reason once a organization is added, once um, let's say once account is added to organization, if someone by mistake or intentionally or non-intentionally unintentionally, if they try to leave, this policy will deny. What will happen if this policy is not uploaded? Not there? Risk. What is the risk without this SCP? An administrator could intentionally or accidentally remove an account from corporate governance, bypass security SCP, escape centralized monitoring. Maybe sometimes some people may wanted to escape centralized monitoring, they may do it. And obviously it will create a compliance violations. What are the benefits? Prevent security control bypass. No one can bypass security controls. Ensures all accounts remain centrally managed. Maintains compliance and auditability. Protects against insider threats. So insider threat is something if someone wants to do uh, some unauthorized action or some activity, unauthorized activity, he may try to first remove it from the organization, escape those controls, security controls, and try to do something. But now we have the policy. He cannot escape the security controls. If there is some insider threat activity is being happening, it will be detected. And the example, a compromised administrator account executes AWS organization leave organization. The account becomes standalone, no longer governed by organizational SCP. Okay, so it can be performed by the attacker also. So he may first try to leave the organization. Then, since it becomes a standalone, then it no longer governed by the organizational SCP. Then he can perform the since the security guardrails that were applied are no longer applying now, he will be able to perform all the unauthorized actions. Next, restrict AWS regions. We have already seen this. We'll just constrain to only few regions. We discussed the reasons, benefits, and everything. Then security OU. This will be applied to security OU. Protect security services. Okay. So why it is needed? These services provide the primary detection and audited layer of AWS security. For example, guard duty. What the guard duty will do? It detects credential compromise, malware activity, reconnaissance attempts, suspicious API calls, and the security hub aggregates security findings, compliance checks, risk posture. AWS config tracks configuration history, resource drift, compliance violations. CloudTrail logs all the activity. So all these services are configured in SCP, and these services are protected by this policy. What is the risk without this SCP? Attacker first step after gaining access is often stop logging, disable guard duty to avoid detection. What are the benefits? Prevents or preserves audit evidence, prevents security blind spots, supports incident investigations, meet compliance requirements. Well, this is for infrastructure overview. The policy is SCP, restrict network changes. Again, this policy protects the components in the infrastructure overview, network account. What components are there in the network account? Transit gateway, VPN gateway, customer gateway, direct connect. All these components are protected by this policy. And then why it is needed? These resources typically form an enterprise network backbone. On-premises DC, example on-premises DC direct connect transit gateway VPC. Deleting them can impact multiple environments simultaneously. It will lead to a larger production